this thing up. So I might only have an hour today because of family reasons, but let's make the most of it. It's the new year, and I also got a new computer, so I might not be too comfortable with everything that's going on my screen. Anyway, because I don't really have everything synced yet, I think now would be a good time to start integrating what I've learned in the past few months about how this contribution to Python should look like in its final form. So just for a quick recap, I've had a few starts at this, starting with generating railroad diagrams, then discovering that the source data isn't really great, that the documentation Python has doesn't really match the actual Python grammar. So the first step here would be to get the grammar that Python actually uses and display that in the docs. And then once that's done, I can go back to the railroad diagrams that started all of this. And when I started, I knew basically nothing about Sphinx or about how the documentation build works and how even the grammar looks like, how it should all fit together. Right now I have a better idea, and I've prototyped some stuff, and I think now is the time to start with a new branch. Whenever I need something from the old one, will have the diff in front of me, so I can just copy it. But it was getting really messy with a bunch of files in weird locations being read by some script, and nothing was in the right place. So what I can do now is start with start putting things where I actually want them for the initial pull request. Hope that makes sense. So new machine. I'm starting with the main branch of Python. I'll create a new branch and switch to it, and say name this grammar in docs, something like that. And what I realized I want to do, I also wrote that on the discuss thread, is I want to make a script that goes through the documentation in doc reference, the one that has these grammar snippets, and I want to generate these snippets and put them directly in the source RST files. I usually don't like this approach. I usually want to separate or have files that were completely written by a human and have files that were completely auto-generated, and then combine them somehow with the script. But in this case, I want every change in that goes to the docs reviewed in the context of the surrounding text, right? So I want to make any change appear in the diff in the pull request, and so it can be reviewed, and hopefully it can be put in the right place and the text around it can adapt, because if the text around says something like I know there's one case where it's like for the last 3 cases, blah blah blah, and for that to work, the last 3 cases need to be in sync, which is hard to do when you're auto-generating. What I also need is the list of all the grammar rules that I want documented, because, for example, this is probably a production list for compound statement, and it also has a bunch of other rules that are added to it because they're needed in this rule. And a good way to determine which other rules I want is to include the rules that are not documented somewhere else, right? So if I have a well, sweet doesn't appear here, so this is a bad example. But for example, if match statement is defined further on in this chapter, then I won't document it here. I'll leave it for somewhere else. But if this statement list doesn't have its own entry, then I want it under the place where it appears. Okay, hope that makes sense. So my script will need to read all of these RST files, look for these production lists, and see, well, maybe there's one extra thing. I probably don't want to use this production list as it is, but I want to make something similar with a slightly different syntax, where I give it the rules I want, and the body will be auto-generated, and then I'll need a Sphinx extension that can parse this and turn it back into a production list, basically. I hope Sphinx can do that. So let's start with the simple cases, which is these top-level components. Let's see how that looks on docspython.org, language reference, top-level components. So there are 3 grammar snippets right here, and I think my first actual pull request to CPython will be changing this page. So we'll have all the backend, all the functionality, but it'll only change these 3 lines just to not overwhelm the reviewers. So what I want in here is, instead of this production list, I will want this to say, for example, grammar snippet, and I will want to document file input here, right? Then I will probably want a comment generated by I hope that's the good the Sphinx syntax for things like this, generated by tools build. There's the tools build. Let's see, there's CPython tools build tools spec generator, and a script in here. So tools what's a good name? Let's call it dogs generator. Pi, just to see, you're not supposed to modify the part that comes after this. It'll be overwritten by whatever we'll call this script. And then I will want this auto-generated. Okay, same thing for the other two here. So here will be a grammar snippet for interactive input generated by the same file, and here we'll have a grammar snippet eval input generated by the same file. So what's the diff? Maybe I want to preserve this Python grammar thing, which let me refresh my memory. What is that? Production list. A production list. Blah blah blah. Production group argument serves to distinguish different sets of production lists that belong to different grammars. Right. So this is for example, for the case where we're documenting two different grammars, for example, Python and the string formatting language, and whenever we say statement in one, we want it to link to that grammar and not the other one. So I will want to link from my newly generated stuff to the old stuff that wasn't converted yet when the pull requests are in flight. So I will want to preserve this Python grammar identifier, and I want to call it production group, or maybe just group. Also look at the general syntax for restructured text directives. Structured text primer. Never. Here it is. So if you have an image, right, so there's a flat field list just like I had there, with some kind of name in colons and then a value. So that's what I want to emulate. And then there's a new line and some body. The problem with the production list directive is that it doesn't really follow the usual grammar of Sphinx directives, and it does not take these what are they called? Options, right? And I do want to take these options because I do want this comment in there. Even if it's ignored by the tool. I hope that makes sense. So this is what I will want the result to look like. I'll commit that and say that is Okay. And now I will actually write this tool. CPython toolspec generator docs generator py, and this will be a tool that will need the directory to work in and the grammar file. So let me see how tools work. I have that in my previous branch. It's this tool that I'll be emulating, imports argparse and a bunch of stuff. I'm not really starting a new here. And then it has a main. Okay, I don't want that. Program is docs generator. Py. Description will be regenerate the grammar in docs. Okay, we will want a grammar file name, and we will want docs directory, which is directory for the docs, and all RST files will be regenerated. Okay, then there's a name. We will want to build the grammar later. Let's not do that right now. So what will this main function do? It will find all RST files. It will scan them for these grammar snippet rules. It'll leave the old production lists alone, and it will only regenerate the grammar snippets, so a human needs to convert these first. It will scan for these rule names, and it will need to remember all these names, so it can filter them out for all the descriptions. And then it needs to make a new pass through all the files that had the grammar snippets and rewrite them in place. So even without any grammar parsing, that's quite a lot of work to do. So let's get started. Oh, did I remove the part where we parse the arguments? I did, so let's not do that. So I want to recursively look for all the RST files. So for path, and let's convert this args.docdir to path, and we'll glob for anything ending with RST. Did I get that right? So it's tools, so this one actually, generator, and it needs a grammar file name, so that's grammar python.gram, and it needs a doc directory, and I only need the doc library. And I need to run this with Python. Oh, it's not library, it's reference. Is it? Yeah, doc reference. Ah, there we go. Right, so this is all the files I'm looking at. I will need to remember all the files with grammar, and I will only include the ones that have these grammar snippet thingies. So for each of those files, I will open it. I will need to open it with the right encoding, since somebody might want to run this on Windows. File is no longer a built-in function in Python 3, but my editor still keeps it that way. For each line and file, if the line starts with exactly this, then this file does contain a grammar snippet. So I will want to append it to this list. It might have more grammar snippets, so this won't be a list, it'll be a set. So I can just add this path in. Right. And let's see what that came up with. Right, so it looked through all these files and found one file, exactly the one that I changed in the previous commit, so that's correct. And this, when I remove this prefix, I will also get the rule names that I want to keep in another set. I will want all of these to be unique, so each one should be documented only in one place. So I'll collect those in a list and then make sure that they're all unique. So what I can do here is top level rules extend with the line with this removed and split. Right, and I want to print out these top level rules. Let's see the typo. Right, so I got all of them, and in new editor here, if I added more of these, then I should get it like this. So this works. Unlike normal software, I will not be writing tests for this, because modifies existing files. It has a known input. It has a reviewable output. So I don't really need extra tests, right? It will only do one thing, and if it breaks, people will know, right? So I'm just using these smoke tests to make sure it's actually working, but I won't be writing a test suite, unlike normal software. Okay, this is a bit complicated. Also, I think I want to allow white space here. I'm not sure about white space before this colon. I might want to allow indenting this, although that doesn't really happen in the Python documentation. Let's worry about indenting later. Right now I want to allow arbitrary white space, not just one single space. Let me see if the restructured text documentation has anything about it. Explicit markup start 2 periods and a space, followed by the directive type and 2 colons, the directive marker. The block begins immediately after the directive marker. How is white space handled here? Do we have a formal documentation of restructured text? I mean, this has a space. I don't know if you can have a space in front of the directive type. And I can't really build the docs right now either. What's the best way to check what Sphinx does? Let me just remove all the changes in here. I can revert it later. And what happens if I put a space in here? Ah! My editor hints that this is now not correct syntax. Let's try to build the docs. I hope I can avoid the many of these rebuilds later. And it looks like the file input is actually here. So this is not a comment. Let me add something else so I can be sure. Hopefully this is faster. No. Sphinx's writing output step happens for everything. And for some reason it's not done in parallel because only one core of my processor seems to be active. this is regenerated. So unlike my syntax highlighting, 2 spaces are valid here. I assume more spaces will also be valid around here. I'm so used to this fast edit debug cycle. I don't know what to do when a tool takes this much time. Yep, all good. Right, so all the white space here is optional. It can be there. So that's it for this experiment. I'm reverting the file to whatever I had there before, and let me go back to this docs generator. So if I want more than just one space, it's time for a regular expression. The way I usually do regular expression is name them using re.compile. So they're up here as a constant. So this is regular expression. Let's have it as a raw string. There can be spaces here, but there can also be more white space. Is that S or W? Probably W. There can be white space here, like arbitrary white space. Then, so yeah, the spec says this needs to be space, but let's take tabs and stuff like that as well. That's okay for our use case. And there can be white space around here. Let's take any amount of white space. This doesn't handle indentation, so this will need to be at the start of a line. And I will want to capture anything after this double colon into a group. Okay. Let's not name the group if there's just one. Okay, so I will require a full match of the entire line and put this in the match variable, and if that matches, then here we go, add the file, top level rules extend, instead of this remove prefix I can just take the first matched group of the match. Right. That didn't work. And it's time to debug regular expressions. I think there's a site for that, right? Python regular expression. And my test string will be this. Okay. Oh, W is word and S is space. Yeah, I always get those wrong, and I think W is white space and S is string or something like that. Nope, that didn't work. see. So this does not match grammars. This should match. So let's go with just a match. Oh, there we go. And full match does not work, and I guess it's because of the final new line. Yeah, so line, when I'm iterating over a file, a line has the final new line, which is not included in here, and there's a regex flag for it. Dot matches new line. What's the Python name for it? I'm in Python here. There's this dot all flag. Right, and now I don't need the strip. Right, good. So what I'm doing with this group is I'm using split on it, so the white space in front of that and at the end is discarded when I do the split, so I don't need to do any stripping. And I can match new lines here. So this works well. So I have the top level rules, and I have the list of files that I will need to fix. What I will do then is I want to ensure that each of the top level rules only appears once in all of the docs, and I'll probably want to be helpful with that and get a good error message. So for example, if file input appears here and the same thing would appear, for example, in this index, I want to not only get rid of the duplicate, but I want to raise an error that says what exactly is wrong and where. So a simple set won't make it. I will need to remember where I saw the rules. I will need to go through them one by one, and if the rule is in top level rules already, I'll raise an exception. Otherwise I will add it to the top level rules, and I will remember where I saw it. right? And the error here will be, let's say, a value error, and I'll say rule, put that in quotes, appears in both in the previous location and in the current path. I didn't say that. Right, rule file input appears in both in doc reference index RST and in doc reference top level components RST. Okay. It should only be documented in one place. Right. That's a bit too long, so I will split it up. Perfect, almost perfect. Okay, so let's remove this deliberate error and move on. Need to relearn how to use my editor. So, what happened on my branch right now? I added this file. This is a good checkpoint. Let's add it. Okay, so the next step in this script will be to go again through this list of files and regenerate the snippets. I won't be regenerating the actual snippets yet. I'll just do some demo functionality because changing the files is not as easy as it might seem. So I will go through all of the files again, and now I will basically go through all of the lines again. When I see the header, I'll need to enter some kind of rewriting mode where I ignore, let's look at this file. So I ignore everything up to the first blank line, and then I ignore more up until the next blank line. The first block like that will stay the same. Let's not worry about preserving this Python grammar. That will only be generated for Python grammar right now. So this will be fixed, and then this will be auto-generated. So right now, just to get something off the ground, I'll only do this block. So let's say if I make a deliberate typo here, my tool should fix it. Okay, so open the file, and for each line in the file, I will want to make this match, and if I'm matching, I will need the match later. If I'm matching, I need to enter a mode where I ignore everything up to the next blank line. Let's do it like that. And what I'll also want to do is, well, let's make a list of the original lines and a list of the new contents of the file. Then if they're different, I'll update the file. Okay, so original lines will be something like that. New lines will be something like that. And then I will always add the line to original lines. And if I'm not ignoring, I'll add the lines to new lines. And let's make that an if else, because if I'm ignoring lines and the line is empty, I will want to stop ignoring lines. Not sure if that algorithm is clear. If not, let me know. Okay, and at the end here, I have a list of original lines and new lines, and if they are not the same, then I want to update the file. I only want to update the file if I'm actually making modifications, because that changes the last modification time of the file, and that gets used by tools like Sphinx to see if it needs to reread it. Right, so let's open it for writing, and do we have file write lines in Python? I don't actually remember. Write lines, list of lines to stream, line separators are not added, so each of the lines should have a line separator at the end. Perfect. Okay. Right, this mode should be named. That did something, and just like I wanted, it removed this block. Right, so these lines were ignored, and so they didn't get added to the new lines list. Right, but I want them actually there, so I want to add this. append for a list, and I want that. I wonder if this will work. And I'll probably need to be hard coded so it doesn't change suddenly. Ah, and I forget the new lines, right? It's at the end. Okay, probably need to give git restore the file because my tool mangled it somehow. Right, yeah, I can't use file because it adds my home directory here. So let's hard code that. This is a constant, so it goes on the top. That. Still within Python's line length limit, and I also want to append a blank line to end this. And now nothing changed. Let's add a print here saying we're updating else saying that we're not updating. Well, good, that's unchanged. I don't need this list of files now. I will still make use of this, but let's make it clear what it is. Okay, top level rules are this, and top level components was unchanged. And that's ready for a commit. Now it is, oh, it's actually time for me to end. So like I said in the beginning, I only have an hour today. It should be better next time. Hopefully I'll have full 2 hours again on Wednesday. But for today, this is everything I wrote. Hope it was entertaining. Hope it was useful. or at least some of you, and see you next week.